Hey folks, Papa Boris here, reviewing another Through the Ages game. This is the final three-player game to finish in the first round of the 2025 World Championship Through the Ages tournament. This is me against Sheeter and Gangwon Teacher, and we kick off with a doozy. Sheeter chooses Acropolis over the Library of Alexandria. I mean, this is a fine wonder, don't you get me wrong, but I think this is the third pick I would make. Library of Alexandria is a great wonder. It makes science. It's really, really strong. I think I would take that over Acropolis in a head-to-head just about in any circumstance. And if you don't want to take a wonder, taking Cleopatra, who is a terrific leader, also makes sense, because if you take one of the wonders, the other player gets Cleopatra and the other wonder, which is just a really strong start to hand over to the second player. So I can see taking Cleopatra, but Acropolis, oh man, this one hurt my heart to get to watch Gangwon Teacher, a pretty strong player, open up with Library and Cleopatra. It is just insane. Cleopatra is really strong with Library specifically because a lot of times you struggle to use her effect during all the turns, but the Library has a stage, the first stage, critically, that only costs a single rock. So you can use Cleopatra's power easily on this on the turns where you're not building a lab. So that was just brutal to watch. Now on my turn, what do you take here? I think you could take any of these leaders. I like Hippocrates for the extra yellow tokens, and of course we take the rich land for an extra rock. And I guess everybody's happy coming out of the draft, and we go to the first real turn. Alright, so Sheeter builds a mine, raises population, he gets his choice of leaders. Which one do you pick? I would pick Confucius. I like the free science, and so does Sheeter, so he takes him and plays him. A very principled turn. Nothing to do or see here. Good, solid play. Gangwon, for his turn, puts down Cleopatra, builds the first stage for free. Then he also gets to make his mine, and he can choose to either take urban growth or raise population. And he decides to raise population, which I would do as well. Although some people like to take urban growth to hoard their food, and they're willing to risk missing out on a free temple. But Gangwon makes the exact same turn I would have made, and he passes the turn. On my turn, we play Hippocrates. Raise population, build a mine, and we have a card left over. Pretty easy grab here. You take the urban growth. Only thing to think about is, do you take the urban growth that's falling away, or do you take this one that is gonna make things slide down faster? And I'm not sure that, you can really make a particularly significant calculation on this one way or the other, but there's a lot of good stuff here. Yan's a good leader, Genghis is a good leader, both alchemies and an irrigation. I decided to keep it slow to reduce the odds of something coming to my opponents more quickly. Of course, then it's maybe not going to come to me more quickly, so, it's a toss-up either way. All right, Sheeter is up. He plays an event. We get free, mostly rocks, and he spends those rocks to build the Acropolis right away. Instead of building a second lab, is it worth it to get this online one turn sooner over a lab? I don't think so. I think it just makes sense to build your second lab, get that science up to 2, and then build this the following turn. That's just my personal preference, because this is a culture, basically. The strength's not doing anything. There's no strength-based event that's going to come here. And the government discount is not going to come into play either yet. So just build your lab. I think Sheeter, as far as I'm concerned, throwing away a science here. He then decides to grab an urban growth for his other lab, and there's not much else to do, so he takes frugality, although I will say it's worth considering raising population. But here, since he does have a worker, since he never built this lab, keeping it to hoard an extra food and grab an extra food with frugality, this is kind of worth 2 food. The decision to take this instead of raise population is essentially worth 2 food, 1 for the frugality itself, and then 1 for not revealing this extra consumption. So an action for 2 food, I think it's a reasonable choice, and he passes the turn. Alright, Gangwon's up. He plays an event. We get a free population increase. He finishes the library, and then he grabs alchemy, which makes perfect sense, and he grabs Yan, who's a great leader, so that makes perfect sense. And yeah, I could have very easily done the same thing, and we pass the turn. Now, on my turn, I make a little bit of a frisky decision. After playing an event and electing not to get this free warrior, I just grab irrigation, Genghis, and alchemy. I'm like, screw it, let's take everything. Here is where I think I messed up, because Sheeter has the strength from the Acropolis, and Gangwon is going to potentially have some strength from Yan. I'm not necessarily guaranteed to be able to turn on Genghis. This is one of those things where I kind of have like a shortcut heuristic in my head of, in a 3-player gang, Genghis is really easy to activate, but I should have looked carefully at this specific situation and realized it's not a sure thing. So spending an action, well in this case 3 actions of my 4, is a little bit aggressive. I think it would have perhaps made more sense to take irrigation and alchemy, sure, but then just like build my other lab and grab breakthrough for some extra science. Because the Genghis's value is not assured. So here, failing that, I just make a lab with my 3 rocks. I actually can't use urban growth because then I'd be corrupt. It's okay because I do have alchemy in hand to use the urban growth on, but then I pass the turn. So now Sheeter is up. He plays an event. We're all playing events. We get a free temple. He uses frugality to raise population and puts the university under construction. A pretty aggressive move, I would say. With minimum rock production, it's going to take a while before he can build this. He will not even be able to build it next turn, but it's not until the turn after. That's an eternity in this game. And he's passing up iron and rich land. He could have used the 2 actions. Well, he spent 3 actions to put the wonder under construction. He could have used 2 of them to take rich land and iron, and then the 3rd to use up this urban growth to get the extra science. So I think that was the right play. You'd have to really work hard to convince me that spending 3 actions to put a wonder under construction you're not going to finish for at least 2 more turns is better than iron, which you can already do, rich land, and getting your 2nd lab built. He has the fighting band, which I'm sure Gangwon was happy to see, because if he doesn't draw one with Jan, he's going to want to have it for Jan von Shish Kebab, and that ends the turn. Now we're kind of vulnerable here, so it's pretty convenient that Gangwon has an open borders agreement to offer me. I accept, of course. He researches alchemy, he upgrades a lab, so he only has 1 lab, but it's making 2 science, 3 with the library. What to do with his remaining actions? He grabs Code of Laws. Well, it's a tough one. I'm not a fan of taking this for 2 actions when you only make 3 science and are currently sitting at 0, to be fair. But what else is there to do? You could take a speculative rich land, and we know I criticize that move. So the real thing to consider is, well, what about printing press and drama for 2 actions? Now that is actually not bad in this game, because we got Shakespeare and Bach and Marlene and Chaplin. And then as far as dramas go, Ian interacts with those, though an age 1 drama's not, or age 1, sorry, not drama, I'm talking about the printing press. An age 1 library is not that impressive with him. Steve Jobs is someone who wants science. There is direct and tangential interaction from a lot of the leaders available in this pool. The best one maybe is Gaudi, who isn't here, but there's a lot of leaders that work really well with these early libraries and theaters. I think I would have taken them over the Code of Laws, but I completely respect someone not wanting to take those like kind of frisky culture-based plays and just going with the solid thing of Code of Laws in 2 turns. All right, so it's my turn. Notice the pickle I'm in. I could put Genghis into play, but I'm not even one of the strongest players. I'm dead last. So what I do here is I research alchemy. I upgrade it twice. You can replace Hippocrates after just getting 2 of them, because the 3rd one is only after age 4, and that one's often not that significant. But I decided not to do that here because it's like Genghis is doing literally nothing, so I might as well just keep Hippocrates for 1 more turn. I just raise population and pass. So on Sheeter's turn, plays an event, of course. We all get some free science. And what does he do? Well, he grabs Isabella, which makes sense. Might as well make some extra rocks when you're at bare minimum and going for this big wonder, and you haven't even built your lab yet. Then he promptly plays her, builds 2 stages of the university, and grabs theology. So it's a bit tricky because he's not building a 2nd lab, but I understand wanting to get this wonder done. So it's a reasonable course of action, though I'm going to complain about it in just a bit, as you shall see. I think it may have made sense on this turn, instead of building 2 stages of the wonder, to use this urban growth to make your 2nd lab finally, and then just raise population. So we'll talk about that on Sheeter's next turn. Gangwon's up, he plays an event, and it's uncertain borders, a real doozy to start the game with, because it means that I am going to lose a yellow token from my bank, which cuts into some of the bonus of Hippocrates, but at least I have Hippocrates to offset it. He then drops in Jan, puts the Forbidden City under construction, raises population, and steals the fighting band. He has 1 more action left. After making another warrior, he just builds the 1st stage of the wonder. Now, this wonder... Oh, God. The text. Okay. This wonder It's sort of like a combo of pyramids and hanging gardens. Having 2 discontent workers be ignored is a little worse than having 2 happy faces, but it's close. So I see why this wonder is tempting. I often don't find it that great, in part because it just takes so many actions to put it under construction, or to get it built. If you think about it, he took 2 actions to build it, and it's going to take another 4 to finish it. So that's 6 actions, 6 turns worth of bonus as far as the civil actions go is eaten up in the construction. 6 turns, I mean, that's like the whole game, right? Like a game might last like 18, 19, 20 turns, one of which is the opening draft. So like it's pretty much like the entire game, right? So I just find that that's not very helpful. It's sort of like paying back its own action cost in exchange for 2 workers, and 2 workers is great, but I mean 8 rocks when you're making 3, that is a lot of rocks. So here I would have gone in a different direction. Instead of spending 3 of my 4 actions, with the 4th being to raise population, to put this wonder under construction and build the first stage, I would have taken either a free Taj Mahal if I was feeling frisky. This actually would have been free. It's only showing 1 because he has this extra wonder under construction. Because he switched leaders this turn, it actually would have cost him 0 to put under construction. I would take this wonder, which costs 1 less civil action to build and just gives 3 culture, and try to power my culture lead up, juice it to ridiculous heights, and then try to race out of the game that way. Or I would have grabbed iron if I was feeling like, more solid and conservative, and just say, hey, just take iron, research it, upgrade a mine. Another option is take cartography to compete with colonies, if that's what you've been putting in here. Take drama for all these leaders, the Shakespeare, the Marlene, the Charlie, the Ian Fleming, like every single one that interacts with drama. All the H3 leaders that have any sort of interaction with drama are in this game, and go for it that way. So I don't think that the construction of this wonder was particularly impressive here. On my turn, I do put Genghis because now Hippocrates isn't doing anything since Hippocrates max caps out at 3. And what to do now? Well, I research irrigation, upgrade a farm, build a warrior, steal the fighting band like everybody else. And tragically, I'm 1 strength away from Genghis's 3 culture, which is very sad. But I'll take the iron for 1 action, absolutely. And with my last one, I grab cartography. I don't remember if I put colonies in here, or if I just took it because my opponents play a lot of colonies, or just because 1 strength would be helpful in turning on Genghis's culture bonus. Drama would have been a reasonable alternative here as well. It's hard to say which one's better. So I throw away some cards, and Sheeter is up. Now watch what Sheeter does. Sheeter plays an event. Okay, we all get a science. And then, after taking monarchy, building this lab, and raising population, he plays the monarchy. Now, the thing that's weird is he could have built this lab last turn, and then he would have an extra science. This turn, he could have just finished building his wonder, right? Instead of paying 2 rocks with the urban growth to build this lab, he could have paid 3 rocks to finish the wonder. And on this particular turn, that would have given him 2 science instead of 1 science. So Sheeter's play of deciding to rush the wonder wasn't necessarily wrong, because this is a big action commitment, and you can say, well, let me give up a little bit of science in exchange for paying down some of my action debt. But if you're going to spend 2 actions on the previous turn to start the wonder, then you need to finish it this turn, because having done that, it is worth more science to finish your wonder than to build your other lab. Beg your pardon, I just realized my mouse pad is noisy, and I need to put the cover on it. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I could have just paused the recording and not done that, but hey. Now, he has 2 rocks left over. Had he built the wonder, he would only have 1 rock left over. So he takes irrigation and then passes. If he was going to use those 2 rocks to make a warrior, which I don't like, I always make fun of these extra warriors, that would have been one thing, but he doesn't even use those extra rocks. They're just sitting around. So I think he just threw away another science here as far as I'm concerned. All right, Gang 1 plays an event. It's free science for everyone thanks to Confucius. He drops the Code of Laws down, and then he gets close, but still can't quite finish this wonder. He grabs the breakthrough for 2 science, which is very reasonable, and an urban growth. He still has another lab he might build someday. Very reasonable turn, and he passes. All right, on my turn, I take the swordsman. I research them. I upgrade a swordsman. Genghis is now turned on. Woo! Then I decide to upgrade the other one so that I am in clear, not last, regardless of tie breaks, and I play cartography so I'm in clear first in case anybody put some good stuff in here. I was a bit unlucky. There was, this disputed borders. What is that called? Uncertain borders. Had that been later on, like in one of the last two cards instead of one of the first two slots, I could have gotten a yellow token instead of losing one. So that was a bit of bad luck. But in any case, if there are any more nasty surprises in here, I might be able to snipe them. And I pass my turn. This does mean delaying iron, but I felt like it was worth it to get the culture going and also not to be hit by any more nasties. Sheeter plays an event. It's a wealthy territory. Thanks to cartography, I am able to win it, so there we go. I get some value. I get a ton of rocks and 3 blue tokens. He finally finishes the wonder. Grabs knights, because my opponents all seem to love knights. He researches knights. He plays knights. He grabs rich land here. I think it's a crazy move. You got swordsman right here. Why does everybody love knights, but just treat swordsman like a bridesmaid? I don't really understand. I think this is an amazing card. Infantry shows up in a lot of tactics. And so having this, being able to turn on almost all of the H2 tactics, right? You got this one, this one, this one, this one. There are 3 others, so more than half of them involve infantry, and this one blows giant chunks of rotting goblin dick. So most, I would say 2/3 of the usable tactics will have infantry in them, and not having swordsman closes you out of all of that. So, I don't know, I think you take swordsman here, you don't screw with the knights, and taking rich land for 2 actions, which is, 2 actions for 2 rocks, is just goofiness to me. But he passes the turn, and it's over to Gang 1. So Gang 1 finally finishes the Forbidden City. He does now have 6 actions and 4 military actions, at least temporarily, with this open borders agreement as a despot, which is impressive. He raises population, and what to do with these other actions? Well, that's another problem with the Forbidden City. A lot of times in Age 1, an extra civil actions value is a little bit underwhelming, especially if you already have Code of Laws, and this is your 6th action that we're talking about, rather than your 5th. The way you want to think about the value of an extra action is that it's the value of whatever your worst play of the turn is. And it's kind of tricky because a lot of us have this shortcut of extra actions are good. And they are. Extra actions are good. But it's also useful to think about them in a technical, quantitative way that whatever you wouldn't have done had you not had that action, that is what that action is giving you. And a lot of the times in Age 1, when you're out of food, rocks, and science, you can't do that much researching, growing, or building. It's just taking cards. The card is maybe not that impressive. Like if you look at this turn, he builds a warrior, because everybody here loves building warriors. And to be fair with Jan, that is an extra culture, so that's good. He grabs swordsman, because he is not a crazy person. And then he takes reserves! Reserves 1! For 3 actions. But can you blame him? What actually else was there for him to do with 3 actions? I mean, I'll give you a minute. There's really not that much for him to do. He cannot take these leaders. He already has a leader. All right, he could take frugality, which he's miles away from ever growing his population, and rich land, which currently he has nothing to do with. He could take bread and circuses to fix his happy faces someday. I mean, there's actually not that much to do. If he had an extra science, he could have researched monarchy, but the action for monarchy to research it replaces itself. So still, that would have been 1 action, and then what do you do with your other 2? There's just not much to do here. So that's, again, the Forbidden City, we talk about how it takes 6 actions to build it, so it takes 6 turns to replace itself. But it's, in a way, kind of worse than that, because when it's replacing itself, those actions that get replaced are often underwhelming in Age 1. Anyway, he passes the turn. That's enough of me ranting about that. let's just take a moment. He took a reserves for 3 actions. Oh God, did I just crash it? Please tell me I didn't crash it. We all get rocks. It didn't crash, thank goodness. I research iron finally. I raise population. I gotta build back my army that I used to win this wealthy territory, and then I just upgrade a couple of mines. So I got a very kind of boring, very conservative game going here. We got the big 3, farms, mines, science. I'm doing okay on culture, thanks single-handedly to Genghis. If you look at the culture, we're all kind of okay. 3 to 4 to 5. Gang 1's definitely in the lead on that, but his rocks suck, his food sucks, and his science sucks. So all in all, it's a pretty balanced game. I'm feeling actually okay about the situation. Mainly, I am behind on actions compared to both opponents, but if I can fix that with a government in H2, get some military tax, I'm a happy man. All right, Sheeter plays an event. It's culture, which sucks because 3 of my 4 culture per turn is coming from Genghis, which does not count to the culture rating. But whatever. He grabs Code of Laws for 3 actions. God, I do not like this play. So first of all, whenever you look at someone's play and you go, oh, they did that for 3 actions, that's stupid. You know, like you have to ask yourself, well, what was there to do? Because the more stuff that there is to do, then the more likely it is that a 3-action grab like this is in fact dumb. But in some cases where there's just a dry board and nothing to do, they might have just been using their actions because that was the best thing they could have done with them. That's not the case here, though. He has plenty to do. You start your turn with 5 actions, research irrigation, upgrade irrigation twice, raise population. There's 4 of your actions right there. And then you could take a rich land. Yes, that rich land isn't amazing, but you fixed your food situation. It's just solved right now. Instead, we're taking Code of Laws, and yeah, he can research it right now, so it's cool that he gets to do that. And then he researches theology and upgrades it to fix a happy face problem that he didn't have, instead of upgrading his first mine. But whatever, we'll let that pass. The point is that, like, it's just not that impressive here. There was no need to spend 3 actions for it. Look, Gang 1 already has Code of Laws. Maybe he thought I was going to take it, but I only have 4 science at the moment. I can't research it this turn. We're in age 2. There's a good chance I wouldn't have even taken Code of Laws, though I guess if you're Sheeter, you don't know that. But then there's also no desperation. What's the desperation for Code of Laws? You're already at Monarchy. You got 5 science. You're fine. There's a justice system later if you want it. You know, like, there was no need to go crazy like that there when he had plenty of stuff to do. So he passes the turn, I look on in disbelief, and it's over to Gang 1. Gang 1 plays an event, he is the leader, it's a territory for military power, I can't quite beat him, even with cartography. It's not him actually, it's Sheeter, because Sheeter is using Isabella to get extra rocks. And he had a defense card from H2, which is super sad, because the thing just started. Like, I have not even had a chance to draw H2 defense cards, and he already had 2 colonization, which is, you know, part of the first player advantage. All right, so Gang 1 researches swordsman with breakthrough, starts upgrading some swords to build his strength lead. What to do with all these civil actions, though? Well, why not take engineering genius for 3 actions? You already took reserves for 3 actions. It's 2 rocks for 3 actions. Now we're getting an upgrade. We're getting 3 rocks for 3 actions on a wonder that we don't even have under construction. Now, okay, to be fair, what else was there for him to do? He has no workers to build another lab with. He could play reserves for 2 food, but he's still 1 food shy of raising his population, so he cannot generate a worker. It's tough. It's tough to find a move. I mean, you could take theology, research it, upgrade to fix your happy face problem for the future. You could do that, or you could just pay 2 actions to take another reserves. He actually doesn't have a happy face problem because of Forbidden City. He's only using 1 of his freebie Forbidden Cities. I mean, yeah, there's not much to do here. So it's another action turn where he's got a super dry board and nothing really to do, and so he ends up looking like a crazy person. But yeah, I wouldn't have taken the engineering genius for 3, just to be clear. I wouldn't have taken it for 2. But it's tough to find an alternative. In situations like this, think of the cultural heritage. The culture might not be irrelevant, and the science is not irrelevant either, especially when your science production is low. Think of it like a poor man's revolutionary idea. If you've got nothing better to do with your actions, maybe taking that, calling it 3 actions for 2 science, that could have been worth considering. All right, I put the Transcontinental Railroad under construction because even though it's a lot of actions, this is a dry board. There's nothing but garbage for miles here. So I decide, you know what? Let's just commit. Let's just spend. Also, I didn't actually comment on this. I built no wonders this game. I did not build an Age A wonder. I did not build an Age 1 wonder. This is actually a Age 2 wonder for 2 actions under construction. So it's a 6-action wonder. I can do it. I decided to just commit to it and make it happen. It'll fix my strength problems. And I can even upgrade my last mine and still build it next turn if I commit. So stick to my guns, be principled, resist temptation, and get this wonder done for 5 strength and 2 extra rocks per turn. All right, Sheeter flips their immigration and gets a free population increase. He researches his farm. He upgrades 1. He builds a knight because he had to pay back for the colony. Grabs an urban growth for some reason. Frugality, it's food, fine. Patriotism, all right. And with his last action, he upgrades the farm. Just kidding. He raises, I don't know why he raises his population there. He could have just upgraded that farm, but instead he raised his population. So a bunch of aimless yellow card grabs and a random population raise. The turn is over. Gangwon offers me an international trade agreement, and this is an interesting moment. I reject this pact. He offers to make himself a rock and me a food. Now, you might say, hold on a minute, Papa Boris. Why did you reject this? You know, isn't it better? Aren't you still getting ahead of Sheeter? And at the moment, you know, Sheeter is someone who's ahead of you on culture. Yeah, that was a tough decision. My thinking here is that with Gangwon being at 3 rocks, giving him a 4th rock was just too good. And for me, I was, I'm doing pretty well on food. I've got this whole yellow bank to get through before irrigation really kind of dies out. I decided I just didn't want to give him that big benefit. However, if you look at his turn, he takes coal, he researches it, he's got the upgrade for it. His rock situation wasn't really 3, it was 5. So it was going from 5 to 6. I should have accepted that pact. I think I messed up by not doing it. Yes, he was getting the better half of it, but I still should have just taken a free food, because he's going to now keep the pact in his hand, offer it to Sheeter, and still get the rock anyway, only now it's going to be Sheeter getting the food instead of me. So I screwed up on that one. He plays this hard-fought reserves, gets 2 rocks, passes the turn, upgrades another warrior, and we move on to my turn. Here I finished building the Transcontinental Railroad, and I've got 1 action left. With this action, I decide to grab Opera. It's a little bit frisky, but I do make enough rocks to make an Opera. I do need to catch up on culture, and this game does have a bunch of culture leaders. We got Bach, Marlene, Chaplin, and Ian, all of whom interact with Opera. So I think it's a good one to get, and there's not much else to do here. I mean, yeah, you could take Frugality for food, that's fine. Totally fine, but I go for it. Now, the problem with this line is that the cannon, I don't get to take the cannon. I just didn't have enough actions to do it. So that means I'm not getting cannon this game because one of them will be taken by one opponent and the other will be taken by the other. Both cannons are here. That was a bit unlucky for me that both cannons came out like that. Sheeter puts the ocean liner under construction, grabs revolutionary idea. Fine, science is good. Scientific method. All right, sure, no problem. And then he doesn't take the cannon. This just, it's weird. So it's good that he doesn't take cannon because it's good that he doesn't have it. It's just then maddening that when he passes the turn, he disbands a warrior, by the way, and makes heavy cavalry. I don't do this, kids. Don't. I know you think, oh, cool, 4 strength. No, do not disband a warrior to make a knight for heavy cavalry. It's incredibly dumb. So he passes the turn. And what's going to happen now is Gangwon offers the same exact pact to Sheeter, only now Gangwon's offering Sheeter the rock, and Gangwon takes the food. Had Gangwon offered this to me, I would have taken it. Maybe Gangwon was scared. Maybe you're like, oh, these bitches not taking food. They won't give me the rock. But yeah, Gangwon offers the reverse. Sheeter accepts it. This is heartbreaking. He takes Alfred Nobel, because he loves Alfred Nobel, gets 2 strength, 2 science, makes a warrior, upgraded to a swords. He's got the selective breeding here, which just dropped to 1 action for him. And he takes the cannon. And notice he takes the cannon that's not falling away. So nobody gets this cannon. And again, that's good. It's good that Sheeter's not getting a cannon, and I am not also. It's better that than both my opponents have cannons and I don't. But it just still feels extra heartbreaking. Like, oh, I would have taken that cannon! Anyways, he takes the cannon. He grabs Organized Religion to fix Happy Faces down the road, upgrades a mine, and then that's it for the turn. Now, the good news for me is that Riflemen and Cavalry both drop down here. The bad news is that I'm 1 strength away from beating Gangwon on a tiebreak, so I am the weakest player. I did not get lucky with the timing of the events this game. Really just sort of sucks. So I blow up a farm, and I decide to get greedy. I take Bach for 2 actions to go with Opera, so I'm going to go for a big culture push. I play him right now because, well, Genghis ain't doing crap, so I might as well throw Bach in and see if he does any better. I raise population, and I build a farm. This is stupid. I should not have built this farm. I should have taken the cavalrymen, because these cavalrymen are falling off, and then the other ones are already here. So these are going to get taken by one of my opponents, and then I have no cannon and no cavalry, and I also didn't take riflemen. And remember, in a 3-player game, there are 2 copies of each. So the cannon are dead, the cavalrymen are about to be dead, and one of the riflemen is about to be dead. So I am just leaving myself with no military technology. It was just a total snooze fest because I was a bit on tilt from that Reign of Terror, being 1 strength off from having it go to Gangwon, and I just screwed up, and I just built the farm instead of taking the cavalry. I passed the turn, I was like, no! And then, yeah, that just sucks. That was a total bonehead move on my part. So, Sheeter. Sheeter's up, plays an event. It's free food for everybody. He grabs James Watt, which makes sense because Cole's right there. He grabs the coal. He can't quite do it this turn, but he'll do it next turn. He raises population, grabs the upgrade with the coal, I guess. And I think that's dumb because he should have taken the rifleman. Oh, Jesus Christ. How do you not take rifleman here? Rifleman turns on your tactics. You are not going to go to the end game with heavy cavalry. Like, yes, it's cool that you made 3 knights. These are like the first 2 times in my life, seriously, that I've seen heavy cavalry actually get used in a real game. I mean, I'm exaggerating a bit. I'm sure like at some point some friend or I were playing a game and one of us did a heavy cavalry, but having it come up twice in like the same round against the same opponents in succession is just crazy to me. You take the rifleman here and you open yourself up to better tactics, hoping that, you know, maybe you get cannon, or sorry, the rockets in H3 and can turn on infantry and artillery tactics. Honestly, on this turn, he, you know, did some stuff here, and it's good to get the economy going and everything. But if you think about raising the population and playing the efficient upgrade, taking the efficient upgrade, that's not 100% necessary. I mean, I would have considered taking cavalrymen here with the riflemen, trying to find a way to spend half my turn to do that, just so that I've got the tactics available for H3. All right, so Gang 1 takes his turn. He plays selective breeding, upgrades a farm, grabs navigation so he can fight me on colonies, and strategy. It's a very important tech, helps with the military actions. And then he actually upgrades his last mine to avoid corruption, which means somehow the cavalrymen did not get taken. I'm baffled by this. Gang 1 should have taken cavalry here. Not taking riflemen, fine, you already have swords, okay. But the cavalrymen, I mean, it's one action. You have no horses. This is the last one. You've got to do it. I am just agog. I was completely agog he didn't do it. I was so grateful. So now I take the Republic. I finally fix my civil actions, and I take the cavalrymen. So I made a horrible, horrible mistake, and I wasn't punished. And now I've got 3 actions to kind of sit and do whatever I want with, and what I decide to do is just make an opera. I could have researched cavalrymen and made one, but you know what, like, screw it. Let's just go one more round as the weakest player. We've already got Uncertain Borders and Reign of Terror. How much more bad stuff can there be? Answer, a lot. But still, this is a lot of culture. It's 3 for the opera, and then another 1 from Bach. So it's 4 culture per turn. I'm a little bit behind on the culture front, but now I'm generating a lot, and I'm going to start getting ahead, or so I hope. All right, Sheeter just builds the ocean liner. He doesn't play an event, for which I am glad. He raises population with the ocean liner, puts down Watt, and now he can research this cheap coal and upgrade the coal very cheaply. So his rocks are fixed, his science is good, his food's mostly fixed. Main problem is heavy cavalry. No rifles, no cannon, and no culture. So I'm feeling pretty good about my position relative to Sheeter. Gang 1 goes, he plays an event. It's a developed territory. I try to win it, but, you know, even though he doesn't have the navigation yet, he manages to get up to 4 just by doing a swords and a defense 2. So he gets that. He puts Harvard under construction because I guess in this group we just love Nobel and Harvard. I am not with it, although I am losing to these guys, so maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, he pays 3 actions to put Harvard under construction. I don't like constructing Age 2 wonders right as Age 2 is ending, making it harder to get the Age 3s, especially when they're getting pretty minimal benefit here, just 3 science and a culture. You know, you've got a lab. You can just build a lab for 2 science. Like, you don't need to build this wonder. That's just the way I see it. So he gets navigation down, which makes it hard for me to win colonies ever again. He grabs the Conmon, and he plays it, so his actions are well and truly fixed. And now he has some actions left over. He uses Engineering Genius 1 in case the age ends and he has to throw that card away. And then he raises population. He's now corrupt, so he does build another swordsman to avoid corruption, and he passes the turn. All right, on my turn, I have a pretty good turn here. I spend 2 actions to put the statue under construction, and I build it. And this is an amazing wonder for me because, oh God, the text. Okay, it's an amazing wonder for me because it gives me 3 yellow tokens, which I need, and it gives me 2 culture per turn. So now my culture is fantastic. I grab the rifles, which I believe cost me 2 actions. Yep. So that I stop Sheeter and Gang 1 from having access to any of the Age 3 tactics involving infantry. So they're going to have to hope for one of these modern infantries in order to fix that. I also grab the reserves. The reserves, well, I didn't have to take it. I could have just raised my population, but I was thinking Age 3 is coming around. If we get an early Red Cross, this wonder that costs food, then with this hoard of food that I have, I maybe could build that. instead of raising my population. But that was probably a mistake because I need workers. I mean, I need to build my third lab here because 4 isn't really cutting it in age 3. I need to make operas. I need to make cavalrymen potentially. So yeah, I think that was just a little silly. Not that it's horrible to take reserves. Reserves is a good card, but I mean, take an urban growth. It's 1 action less if you're building a lab or an opera, which are things I need to be doing. So I think I actually biffed it with this reserves. I mean, raising population or just taking urban growth, I think we're both better. Okay, Sheeter plays an event as the strength leader. We get freedom of movement. He grabs architecture for 2 actions. A little bit strange. I feel like I value architecture differently than my opponents. But, you know, he does have 6 science, so it's a turn's worth of science. It helps with his rocks, but he has lots of rocks. I don't know. There's not a whole lot for him to do here. This is a very dry board once again. So he decides to grab the architecture, the wave of nationalism, raise population, and again, doesn't want to upgrade that last farm. Don't, just keep it the way it is. He just doesn't want to do it. He grabs an urban growth, so he's kind of collecting stuff for the future. He uses those rocks to make a warrior instead for 1 strength, so he's a clear strength leader instead of having to rely on ties, and he passes the turn. All right, Gangwon takes a very principal move. He finishes Harvard College, so his science is great now. He's got great everything except for culture, so he needs to somehow get some culture. He puts the Suez Canal under construction, and I don't agree with this. Yes, this is a really sexy wonder. Gives you rocks, lets you make an extra colony. If it's a good colony, it's really hot, but it's a lot of actions, and this isn't what he needs. He does not need rocks. He does not need a colony right now. What he needs is culture, and that is not what this wonder provides. If you look at the situation here from Gangwon's perspective, he's like treading water in last place against someone who's equal to him on culture and is now shooting ahead by 6 every turn. So here, what I would have done is definitely taken the opera so that he had the opportunity to turn rocks into culture. He doesn't need the happy faces, remember, because of Forbidden City. But I would have grabbed the opera and, like, I don't know, raised population, maybe use this urban growth to build my 2nd lab. He's actually got amazing science production for not having more than 1 lab. But he decides to go for the Suez. He plays this reserves 1 card before it disappears, and he is going to let this urban growth go, and he raises his population. Personally, I would have raised population and used urban growth to build a lab, rather than playing reserves for rocks and letting the urban growth die out, but that's the move he makes. The turn ends, and we're over to me as age 3 begins. All right, I play cavalry, raising population, raise it again. I do have these reserves that can be used to make rocks, to make a cavalry, so now I'm hanging down in there with the big dogs on the strength front. And what to do next? Well, here I got 3 actions, not a whole lot of impressive stuff to do with them. I decided to grab frugality for food, urban growth, and the team sports to fix my happy faces in the future. Other considerations, maybe journalism for science and culture. Maybe justice system to improve my actions further, though I already have 7. But I actually feel really good at this point in the game because we're about the same on culture, but I'm making double what my opponents are making combined. And there's no hidden culture here. Neither of these guys generates culture. Now, they do generate culture. Watt makes culture when he leaves, and Gangwon makes culture for everyone if you can research 2 technologies in the same turn. So my culture is incredible. I just need to not fall behind, and this is nice for strength and happy faces. All right, I get this tactic, which would be great if I could get some rockets. So I'm hoping rockets shows up. Sheeter plays an event. It's economic progress. We all get some resources. He gets a worker, takes opera, researches opera, makes opera. So now he's at half of my culture. And then he makes another opera. Now with the 2nd opera, it's pretty close now. So now he's starting to kind of hang with me a little bit better. He grabs selective breeding, which is a little weird because you already got the irrigation and you don't need food that much because you have the ocean liner giving you a free worker every turn. I would have considered grabbing journalism here so that some of your operas can be journalists instead. Another consideration is just to take, instead of paying 2 actions for selective breeding, just take revolutionary idea because science is really good. All right, so Gangwon's up. He plays an event. It's developed territory. I try, but with his navigation, he's able to beat me. He just needs to play a defense and a swordsman, which is very sad. He finishes the Suez Canal with his bevy of actions. And just so we're clear, I want to show you what colony he made. It was historic territory, so it's 2 happy faces and 11 culture. Make note of this. 11 culture that he got. It's not a great colony, to be fair, because these happy faces Remember, he has 2 discontent workers getting ignored by the Forbidden City, so he does not need these happy faces at all, even remotely. But the 11 culture, let's not forget about that 11 culture, shall we? He takes democracy, and in the ultimate flex, he actually researches it. So he gets 3 culture per turn now for democracy. Democracy over Kanmon is the ultimate science flex. And he grabs revolutionary idea, which makes sense. 8 science is very good science production, but, in H3, you can use a lot of science, especially if you're trying to get strategy down. So 6 science here is a very solid play. Makes a swordsman to replace the one he got the colony with, and then he passes the turn. He's actually also got a horde of food, so he's ready to make the International Red Cross as well if that shows up. Okay, on my turn, I play an event. We got wealthy territory. I really try to win it, and I beat Gangwon with his stupid navigation, but now Sheeter steps up and takes this wealthy territory from me with his whole heavy cavalry. He pays his whole ass heavy cavalry to win this wealthy territory. And now we got to pause for a second. So I take Gandhi here, and this is a really committal move. You have to ask yourself, is this correct? Because you're giving up the opportunity to ever do aggressions or wars, or to make more culture from a better leader. For example, Chaplin would be making 3 culture per turn, whereas Gandhi's making 2, and Chaplin's also giving me 2 happy faces. As I look at this now, I don't necessarily think it was wrong of me to take Gandhi, but there were definitely other directions that I could have gone on this turn, because I'm not that far off from being able to compete militarily. If I can fix my science, then I could get an H3 government for more military actions, perhaps even fundamentalism for a 6 strength boost and 5 military actions. I could maybe take military theory if it shows up at the right time. One move I did not consider at the time, but that I do consider now, is taking computers. This is a really early computers, and it works with Steve Jobs. Now, granted, we don't have Marie Curie or Albert Einstein, so we don't have full synergy with computers, but there is one leader who likes the computers. There is spaceflight, which likes the computers, and internet, which is pretty good with computers, although the internet's right here, so if I don't take it now, I'm not taking it at all. Okay, so just the spaceflight, let's say. So I could take computers for 3 actions, research it for 4, and upgrade both computers for 5 and 6, and still have an action left over. Or I could, kind of finagle it. Like I could take computers, maybe get 1, but then grab efficient upgrade to say 4 rocks on the other. I mean, there's things I could do here. I could get my science production up there, and now I'd be making tons of science rocks, okay on food, and winning on culture, and I've got the science generation needed to grab all the important techs in H3 and the actions to research them with, and just try to hold on to my culture lead that way. But I decide, okay, Gandhi, got 3 actions here, fine, 5. Only 3 actions here, no one can declare war on me as long as I have Gandhi in play at the moment. Let's just do that and be safe. Now, I did not need to play Gandhi this turn. I actually don't know why the hell I played Gandhi this turn. It's doing nothing, right? Because I'm already military in the lead. No one's going to aggress upon me. And I am throwing culture away. Bach makes 2 culture per turn plus 1 per opera. So he's making 4. Gandhi's just making 2. So I just threw away 2 culture for absolutely no reason as far as I'm concerned here. And in fact, I make another opera this turn. So I actually threw away 3 culture for playing Gandhi. We're going to keep an eye on how much culture I threw away by playing Gandhi prematurely. I grab Engineering Genius in case I get to play a wonder at some point. I also raise my population with frugality. I build my 3rd lab because I do want to try to do okay on science, and I grab reserves because rocks are always good to have, and then I pass the turn. So my culture's still really solid because even though I threw away Bach, I put Gandhi out, and now it's Sheeter up. By the way, it's worth noting, so first of all, pause. I get 4 rocks here, Gang 1 gets 2 from this arms industry. Had I played computers, I then drew Impact of Science, which would have been amazing with the computers. So, just something to keep in mind. Sheeter plays Wave of Nationalism, gets 6 rocks. He raises population with the ocean liner. He builds back his heavy cavalry. He takes reserves, and he puts internet under construction. Internet's not amazing for him, but, it's points. And he's doing okay on strength, and he's got lots of rocks. So yeah, makes sense to go for the points. So Gang 1's up, he plays an event. It's international negotiations, super annoying. I'm the weakest player by tie breaks. Gang 1 chooses me to give 3 food to Sheeter, which I guess I don't care about that much. Gang 1 then takes tanks, researches them, raises population a few times, and he goes ahead and makes 2 tanks. So it's looking like this guy might have classic army. He also nabs military theory here for 2 actions, which is incredible when you have this many actions, and computers that I did not take. He grabs the efficient upgrade to help him get these computers, and then raises population because there's nothing else to do, and he passes the turn. So okay, so he's ahead of me on strength a lot, but he can't aggress on me with only 3 actions. But with Revolutionary Idea, he will be able to make military theory next turn, and then he will be able to start doing aggressions on me. So I need to take that seriously, and I don't. With 16 science and 6 per turn, I decide to grab civil service. I think this is a big mistake. It's kind of hard to evaluate because, of course, I end up using all of the actions from this, but I don't think I should have spent 10 science on it. I still need military theory. I still need airplanes. I might want to research multimedia, for example. There's just a lot that I need to do with science, and my science generation is not that high by H3 standards. I don't think I should have done this, but I do it. I have a bunch of actions now, and what do? Well, I put Hollywood under construction. It's worth a lot of points. And I grab Revolutionary Idea, raise population, and I don't do anything with it. I should have just made a cavalry. I'm only making 2 military actions per turn. I should have spent 5 rocks to make a cavalryman here. Now, it's worth noting that had Bach still been around, with cavalry, unfortunately the right tactic isn't here, but with cavalry, I would have been at 17 strength, and 17 is significant because Gangwon would then have been 7 ahead of me, and so with a single defense card and 2 actions, I could actually block an aggression. So I've actually now thrown away 6 points. Okay, I threw away 6 points by having Gandhi replace Bach 2 turns sooner than needed, each turn of which Bach would have made me 3 more culture than Gandhi has. Sheeter plays an event. It's vast territory. We all try to go for it. He wins out despite being the only person without navigation bonuses. He uses another heavy cavalry to win the colony. And then, he doggedly builds that heavy cavalry back. The immortal heavy cavalry is going out there and colonizing the world. What to do with his 4 civil actions? Well, he grabs satellites for some strength. Grabs Ian Fleming because he does have opera, so it's, 2 culture per turn. And he actually goes ahead and plays them. Watts gives him some culture coming out, and he makes the satellites for the strength to hold up against Gangwon here. Gangwon does not decide to risk any aggressions on Sheeter. He just declares a war over territory on him. And then he goes ape. So we got the Revolutionary Idea, we got the military theory, we built a lab. So that's a weird bug, actually. And then because the Air Forces landed right here, he's able to, no, he doesn't take the Air Force, I beg your pardon. He just makes a bunch of tanks. He just does it with tanks, leaves the Air Forces for me, and then does he have the tactic? He does, so he has 2 classic armies for 16 strength with 4 swords and 4 tanks. And he's at 6 military actions with a patriotism, meaning that he can declare war on me and do 1 more military action. So it's definitely a bad place to be. And notice, if I had not spent 10 science on civil service last turn, I couldn't have foreseen this, but if I hadn't, then this turn I would have had 22 science, which with a Revolutionary Idea, I could actually have done Air Forces and military theory. Now imagine if last turn I had made a cavalry here like I was supposed to. This turn, I could have researched military theory and Air Forces. It would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actions, which I would have had without civil service. I would have even had 1 left over, and I already have I would have then used my 7th action to raise my population and make an airplane, if I had made a cavalry last time. So then my strength would increase by a lot. I would get 5, 6 for the airplane, doubling my fighting band, another 3 for the horse, that's 9, plus 5 here is 14, and I would be at 28 strength. Now, 28 strength is still not great compared to Gangwon, but it's better than what I have right now. As it is, I take the theory and the Air Forces, I make an Air Force for just the 5, 6 strength, raise population and make a cavalry now, so I'm ready to steal Gangwon's classic army for a boost of 14 strength, but I'm not able to get the military theory down. So he's in position to do an aggression on me if he wishes. With the remaining actions, I decide to build Hollywood so that if he does blow up my operas, I can at least get 18 points from the Hollywood. Obviously, I would have liked to spend Revolutionary Idea to get multimedia and like multimedia and bump Hollywood up to 24. Plus, of course, the culture for multimedia. But there's no way I'm going to do that because now I got to protect myself. So I got to say, Gang 1 really put on a clinic here of what to do when your opponent gets Gandhi. He went all in on the strength while having some economy and culture. And he is ready to declare war and make this business happen. All right, so Sheeter, the target of a war, needs to do something to defend himself. What does he do? He gets the tanks, gets the modern infantry, and he gets some workers, gets some rocks, and he just builds as much as he can. When the smoke clears, he's got 29 to Gang 1's 53, so this is a brutal war over territory. Gang 1 steals a kind of stupendous 5 yellow tokens from Sheeter, although interestingly, Sheeter's still fine thanks to Ocean Liner service. He's still going to be okay. He's not even going to run out his whole bank. But now Gang 1 declares a hybrid war on me, which is very annoying, so he uses these happy faces. He grabs Pierre de Coubertin, Mr. Olympique. He grabs the Pro Sports, which are right there, gets 4 strength from it. Are they 4? They're 4, right? Yeah, 4 strength. He plays Patriotism, and because it's a hybrid war, which is the one card in the deck, that's the only war in the deck that you can declare for 2 actions. He actually has 2 military actions against me rather than 5, and with those 2, he raises population, makes a tank, grabs mechanized agriculture. Oh, and then he actually doesn't use the second one. So never mind. I guess the war over culture would have been just about the same, and he's got 60 strength. So he's doing a great job. People complain, oh, air forces are overpowered if you don't get air. Well, Gang 1's doing just fine. He's the only person who doesn't have air forces, but he managed his economy correctly, and now he's got just a ludicrous amount of strength. All right, now I play Revolutionary Idea. I get down military theory, of course, and I gotta figure out what the hell I'm gonna do about this situation. If I had not done civil service, I would have had the science to, get team sports here, fix my happy faces, and get some strength. As it is, I'm not willing to give up 13 culture. So what I do is I steal Gang 1's classic army. I put the United Nations under construction. I blow up some labs to stop the happy face problems, and I just grab this for some culture. I could have done other things here, but it's worth noting I'm unfortunately not able to build another opera because of my government limit, and since I blew up all my labs, I'm not making any science anymore either. So Sheeter's up, he develops architecture, gets some workers, makes his 3rd opera, builds the internet for 16 points. He grabs democracy, which he'll be able to research next time. He also gets a better tactic, the shock troops, although these are out of date, and then he passes the turn. So now, this is Gang 1's last chance to declare a war, and luckily for me, after stealing 18 culture from me, he does not have a war, he just plays an event. So it's a colony, I don't bid on it, Gang 1 wins it, he has to give up 2 units to take it. And what to do now? Well, let's get some points from International Red Cross. Let's make another arena, which is 2 points with Pierre. He builds a stage of Red Cross. He passes the turn. I offer a peace treaty to Sheeter, which is a little risky, but I had nothing else to do. I couldn't do anything. I get 2 points from this. He gets 1. He decides, okay, I'd rather go 1 point behind Boristina in exchange for getting 1 point ahead of Gang 1. I play the endowment. I'm now behind both players because of that war, so I get 6 culture back. I build the United Nations. I don't have an event to play with it, sadly. And it's age 4, so I'm not going to draw any more cards. So it's just the 16 points, which is fine with me. And I can't do much. I don't have the science or anything to make movies or get a better government or get multimedia. It's a very sad state. I'm reduced to just taking random cards and building temples. Sheeter's up for the final turn of his game. We get immigration. He has to lose a worker, which doesn't really matter very much. He gets democracy for some extra culture, makes another a theater, gets air forces, because why not? He's got nothing to do. He makes a stage of the International Red Cross. And now it's over to Gang 1. So Gang 1 gets 4 food. He's able to make 2 stages. He could have actually made a 3rd if we'd left one for him. He gets mechanized agriculture and computers for the bonus from Nobel. Gets his labs up there, gets his farms up there, and then gets another pro sport here, or arena, for 2 extra culture. And it's over to me, and my last turn is incredibly sad. I got nothing to do here. I just blow some stuff up. It looks like people are going for units, so I make an airplane, I make a temple, I make another temple in exchange for one of my mines, and I just pass the turn. And now we have a really tense finish. Look at how close everything is. We start up with an Impact of Harmony, which lets Gang 1 get a little bit ahead, and Sheeter now catches up to me a little bit too. Our second event is the Variety, which I get a little bit close. I'm almost up to Gang 1, and then Sheeter's falling a little bit further behind. Then we flip Culture. Now I'm second on this, so I actually get ahead of Gang 1 because he's last on it, and Sheeter just about catches up. He's actually tied now with Gang 1 with that 14-point boost, so I just need now some random event that doesn't screw with anything, and I can win first place. What do we flip? Impact of Colonies. Despite having cartography, I only won a single colony all game, so I drop from first to last, and I lose the game in a heartbreaking spread of 5 points. Now, I cannot complain about luck. I cannot, because if I had just waited 2 turns to play Gandhi instead of putting him down right away, I would have gotten 6 extra culture and I would have won this game. But instead, because of that one decision, obviously there were some other points in the game that could have gone differently that would have affected this incredibly tight outcome. I come in dead last. And that's right, that means I came in dead last in all 3 3-player games. And I'm now tied for last place with Sheeter, who really struggled in the 4-player games. So the 2-player games, which I will be commenting on next, will determine whether I get 3rd place or Sheeter does, to see which one of us has a chance in this tournament and which one of us is getting knocked out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like it or subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Take care.